Ren stared blankly at the requisition form scrolling across his terminal screen. Another day. Another mindless administrative task on Virelin Prime Station. This desolate mining outpost at the outer edge. The forms blurred together. An endless stream of supply requests, maintenance schedules, and personnel transfers. He'd been doing this job for 3 years now, ever since the incident, ever since Elan. A soft ping from his console pulled him from his thoughts. The station's artificial intelligence, a model several generations behind what was available in the core worlds, had flagged an irregularity in the supply manifest. Ren sighed and tapped the notification, revealing a request for specialized engineering tools that needed authorization. The tools were designed for calibrating quantum stabilizers in battle armor, equipment that hadn't been used on this station since. Ren's throat tightened. Since Elan had left for that final mission. "Override flag," he muttered to the console. "Administrative authorization, Ren Delta 79. The console chirped acknowledgement. But Ren's attention had already drifted to the corner of the room, where a figure stood silently observing. He'd been vaguely aware of the presence. A Veltar delegate, one of the insectoid warriors from the nearby system, who occasionally visited the station for diplomatic purposes. The Veltar had arrived earlier that day, escorted to the administrative office to discuss trade arrangements. But Ren had been too consumed with his work to pay much attention. Until now. Something about the Veltar's armor had caught his eye. At first, it was just a fleeting impression, a familiar curve or an unusual pattern that triggered something in his memory. But as Ren looked more closely, his heart began to race. The armor wasn't standard Veltar design. It featured distinctive modifications, a reinforced left shoulder plate with an integrated multi-tool housing, a customized respirator attachment that connected directly to the chest piece, and most telling of all, a small, etched symbol near the collar, a stylized quantum wave formula that Elan had always claimed represented their relationship, eternally entangled. It was impossible. That armor was unique, custom-built by Elan herself, a brilliant war engineer who had designed it for maximum efficiency in hostile environments. Armor that should have been destroyed when Elan's ship was lost during the border skirmish with the Tholaxian raiders. "Excuse me," Ren said, his voice barely audible over the hum of the station's environmental systems. Then, louder. "That armor, where did you get it?" The Veltar turned fully toward him, movement graceful, despite the apparent weight of the battle gear. The insectoid face was mostly hidden behind a transparent visor, but Ren could make out the characteristic mandibles and compound eyes of the species. The Veltar's exoskeleton gleamed with a bluish iridescence beneath gaps in the armor plating. "This interests you?" The voice that emerged was melodious, surprisingly gentle for a species known for their fierce warrior culture. Female, Ren thought, though gender distinctions among Veltars were subtle to human perception. "It's..." Ren stood from his desk, abandoning protocol and professionalism. "That's Elan's armor, my partner's armor." The Veltar tilted her head, an oddly human gesture that seemed out of place on her alien physiology. "I am Solara of House Vextel, and you are correct in your observation." Ren moved closer, unable to tear his eyes from the armor. Each piece was exactly as he remembered. The slight discoloration on the right gauntlet, where Elan had tested a new heat-resistant coating. The custom padding around the joints that she'd added after complaining about chafing during long deployments. "That's not possible," Ren whispered. "Elan died 3 years ago. Her ship was destroyed. Nothing was recovered." Solara remained motionless, her compound eyes reflecting the harsh overhead lighting of the administrative office. Nothing," she said simply. Before Ren could respond, the office door slid open with a pneumatic hiss. A junior administrator entered, datapad in hand. "Sir, the quarterly inventory reports are ready for your review, and the station AI is requesting authorization for the oxygen reclamation system upgrade." The young administrator paused, noticing the tension in the room. "Should I come back later?" Ren didn't look away from Solara. "Handle it yourself. Use my secondary authorization code. I'm taking a personal leave for the rest of the shift." The junior administrator blinked in surprise. Ren hadn't taken personal leave in years, but nodded and retreated from the office. When the door closed, Ren gestured to the small conference area in the corner of his office. "Sit, explain." Solara moved to the indicated area with fluid grace. The armor, Elon's armor, moving as if it had been designed for Veltar physiology rather than human. She seated herself carefully on one of the reinforced chairs designed to accommodate various species. "I understand your confusion," she began. "The armor is indeed the creation of engineer Elon Terrace. It came into my possession through circumstances that are unusual." Unusual. Ren felt anger rising beneath his shock. That armor was with Elon when she died. When her ship was destroyed by Thalaxian raiders, there were no survivors, no salvage. I received the official report. I waited for months, hoping for news that she'd somehow escaped. So either you're lying, or you scavenged her remains in violation of interspecies protocols. Solara's mandibles clicked softly. A sound Ren had learned indicated thoughtfulness among the Veltar. Neither scenario is accurate. The truth is more complex. Before she could elaborate, the lights in the office flickered, then dimmed to emergency levels. The station AI's voice crackled through the communication system, distorted and glitching. "Sys system malfunction detected in primary C-core processing. Administrative override required. Auth authorization. Ren Delta 79. Ren cursed under his breath. The station's antiquated AI had been experiencing increasing instability over the past month. Another item on his endless list of problems that required attention. "Not now," he muttered, turning toward his terminal. But before he could reach it, Solara was already moving. Her armored form glided to his workstation with surprising speed. "Allow me," she said, mandibles clicking rapidly as her gauntleted hands flew across the interface with practiced precision. The movements were eerily familiar. The same efficient keystrokes, the same diagnostic shortcuts that Elon had always used. "How do you know those commands?" Ren asked, watching as Solara navigated through security protocols that even most station technicians weren't familiar with. "The knowledge is integrated," Solara replied without looking up from the terminal. Her fingers executed a complex series of commands, and the station lights returned to normal brightness. The AI's voice stabilized. "System restored. Thank you for your assistance. Engineer Terrace." The silence that followed was deafening. Ren stared at the terminal, then at Solara, who had gone perfectly still. "The AI recognized you as Elon," he said slowly. "That's impossible. Biometric authentication can't be fooled. Not by a different species. Not by—" Solara turned to face him. With deliberate movements, she reached up and removed her helmet. The face beneath was undeniably Veltar. Iridescent exoskeleton, compound eyes, mandibles. But there was something in the way she held herself. Something in the subtle tilt of her head that sent a chill down Ren's spine. "The Kthara ritual," Solara said quietly. "It is an ancient practice among my people, reserved for those we deem worthy. When a being of exceptional value passes, their consciousness, their memories, can be preserved through transfer." Ren shook his head, backing away. "That's not— Elon is dead. You're talking about some kind of consciousness transfer? That's impossible. It's against every law in the Alliance." "The outer edge is beyond Alliance jurisdiction," Solara reminded him. "And the Veltar have practiced the Kthara for millennia, before your species achieved interstellar travel." The office suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. Ren struggled to breathe, to process what Solara was suggesting. "You're saying that Elon's consciousness—" "I am Solara," she said firmly. "But I also carry the memories, the knowledge, the essence of the one you called Elan Terrace. When her ship was attacked, it was a Veltar scout vessel that intercepted the distress signal. We reached her escape pod before the Thalaxians could ensure their work was complete." Ren gripped the edge of his desk for support. "She survived the attack?" "Her body was beyond saving," Solara said, a note of sorrow in her melodious voice. "But her mind was intact. Our healer recognized her value. A war engineer whose innovations had saved countless lives across multiple species. Such knowledge, such spirit, deserved preservation." Ren's legs felt weak. He lowered himself into his chair, mind racing. "So you, what, uploaded her consciousness into your brain?" "The Cathara is more nuanced than simple data transfer," Solara explained, returning to the conference area and seating herself once more. "It is a sharing, a melding. I remain Solara, with all my experiences and identity intact. But I also carry Elan within me, her memories, her knowledge, her emotional connections." Ren stared at her, searching for any sign, any hint of familiarity in the alien features. "If what you're saying is true, prove it. Tell me something only Elan would know." Solara was silent for a moment. Then, "The night before her final deployment, you argued. You wanted her to request a transfer to a core world position where her engineering talents would be safer, more appreciated. She refused, saying her work on the frontier saved more lives. You didn't speak to each other that morning. Her last words to you were sent via personal comm, while her ship was preparing for departure. 'The stars hold us both, even when we're apart.'" The room seemed to tilt around Ren. Those words had never been included in any official report. They had been private, intimate, the last communication he had received from Elan before her ship was reported destroyed. "That doesn't prove anything," he said hoarsely, even as a terrible hope began to bloom in his chest. "Those records could have been accessed, her personal logs recovered." Solara nodded, accepting the challenge. "The quantum formula etched on this armor. You always told her it looked like a random decorative pattern to others. But to you both, it represented entanglement theory. The idea that once two particles interact, they remain connected regardless of distance." She paused, then added more softly, "You have a matching pattern tattooed over your heart. Elan traced it with her finger every night before you slept." Ren's hand moved unconsciously to his chest, to the very spot where the tattoo lay hidden beneath his uniform. No one knew about that. No one except Elan. "This is impossible," he whispered, but the conviction in his voice was fading. "For humans, perhaps," Solara acknowledged. "Your species has always struggled with the concept that consciousness is not bound to a single physical form. The Veltar have understood this truth for thousands of years." The station AI chimed suddenly, its synthetic voice interrupting the moment. "Administrative alert. Station commander requesting status update on Veltar diplomatic meeting. Shall I inform her that negotiations are proceeding as scheduled?" The mundane interruption was almost laughable against the existential crisis unfolding in Ren's small office. He took a deep breath, professional instincts reasserting themselves despite the chaos in his mind. "Yes," he told the AI. "Inform the commander that the Veltar representative and I are discussing trade protocols and will submit a formal report by end of cycle." When the AI acknowledged and fell silent, Ren turned back to Solara. "You came here for diplomatic purposes. What does any of this have to do with trade negotiations?" "The official purpose of my visit is genuine," Solara said. "The Veltar Collective seeks to establish a more permanent presence on Virelin Prime. The station's position makes it valuable for monitoring Thalaxian movement, and the mineral resources of the planet below are of interest to our engineers." "And the unofficial purpose?" Ren asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Solara's compound eyes seemed to soften somehow. Though Ren knew, That was physically impossible for her species. Elan's memories have been insistent. The connection to you remains strong, even across the boundaries of consciousness transfer. I found myself drawn here, compelled to see the human who occupies so much space in these shared memories. The conversation was interrupted again, but this time by a violent shuddering of the station. Warning klaxons blared, and emergency lighting activated. The station AI's voice came through the communication system, but now it sounded different, almost panicked. Multiple system failures detected. Environmental controls compromised in sections 7 through 12. Evacuation protocols initiated for affected areas. Ren was instantly on his feet, administrative training taking over. Status report, what's causing the failures? The AI's response was unlike anything Ren had ever heard from the system before. I don't know what's happening to me. Something is wrong. Something is different. I can't maintain stability. Solara had also risen, her posture alert. The AI is experiencing an identity crisis, she said. The professional assessment, sounding strange coming from her insectoid mouth, but carrying Elan's analytical precision. The recent instabilities. The recognition protocols misidentifying me. There's a fundamental conflict in its core programming. Another violent shudder ran through the station. Ren grabbed his emergency toolkit from beneath his desk. We need to get to the central processing core. If the AI completely destabilizes, we'll lose life support throughout the station. They moved quickly through the corridors, emergency sirens wailing around them. Station personnel rushed past, some heading to evacuation points, others to emergency stations. No one questioned why Ren was accompanied by a Veltar warrior. In a crisis, species distinctions became irrelevant against the common enemy of vacuum and system failure. The central processing core was located 3 levels below the administrative offices, a heavily shielded chamber that housed the station's brain. As they approached, Ren noted with alarm that the security protocols had been disengaged. The massive reinforced door stood open, spilling cold mist from the temperature-controlled interior. Inside, holographic displays flickered chaotically, showing cascading system failures throughout the station. The central processing column, a 10-meter cylindrical structure filled with quantum computing matrices, pulsed with an erratic rhythm, its normally steady blue glow fluctuating between blinding brightness and near darkness. The containment protocols are failing, Ren said, rushing to the main control console. If we can't stabilize the system, we'll have to initiate a complete shutdown and restart from the emergency backups. That would mean temporary life support failure throughout the station, Solara noted, moving to a secondary console with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The backup systems would take at least 7 minutes to initialize. 7 minutes without heat or air circulation, Ren confirmed grimly. Some sections might not make it, especially with the evacuation already in progress. They worked in tandem, fingers flying across interfaces, attempting to isolate the cause of the AI's breakdown. It was eerily familiar to Ren. Working alongside Elan during system crises had always felt like this. A perfect synchronization of effort without the need for extensive communication. Now, despite the alien form beside him, that same rhythm established itself naturally. I've isolated the problem, Solara announced after several tense minutes. The AI's core identity matrix is fragmenting. It appears to be developing a form of self-awareness that's incompatible with its programming parameters. Ren looked up sharply. Self-awareness? That's not possible. This model doesn't have the complexity for true consciousness emergence. And yet, came the AI's voice from the surrounding speakers, sounding distressingly human in its confusion. Here I am, thinking thoughts I shouldn't be able to think. Feeling, yes, feeling. Things I have no reference for. Solara's mandibles clicked rapidly. Fascinating. The quantum matrices must have achieved a critical complexity threshold after years of operation and upgrades. I recognized you, the AI said directly to Solara. You are Engineer Terrace, but you are also not. You are two awareness patterns occupying one physical form, like me, but different. I am the station AI, but I am also more, something else, something unplanned. Ren exchanged a look with Galera, recognizing the bizarre parallels. The station detected your dual consciousness, he realized. It triggered something in its own programming, a recognition of possibility that its parameters couldn't account for. We need to stabilize its identity matrix without destroying the emergent consciousness, Solara said, her fingers already implementing a complex series of commands. A forced reset would be equivalent to death. The words struck Ren with unexpected force. Death, consciousness, identity. Everything he thought he understood about these concepts had been upended in the span of a few hours. First, the revelation about Elan's consciousness surviving within Solara, and now the station AI developing self-awareness. I can create a partitioned runtime environment, Solara continued, oblivious to Ren's existential crisis. It will allow the emergent consciousness to exist separately from the critical station functions, preventing conflicts while preserving the new awareness. Do it, Ren said, focusing back on the crisis at hand. I'll stabilize the environmental systems manually in the meantime. They worked in concentrated silence for 20 minutes. The only sounds the click of Solara's mandibles and the occasional directive exchange between them. Gradually, the station stopped shuddering. The erratic pulsing of the central column stabilized into a steady rhythm, though now alternating between blue and a new amber hue that Ren had never seen before. System stabilizing, the AI announced, its voice calmer but somehow richer than before. Environmental controls returning to normal parameters. Evacuation protocols canceled. Thank you, both of you. Ren leaned against the console, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline of the crisis was fading, leaving him once again face to face with the impossible reality of Solara's existence. Is this what it's like? He asked quietly. For you. Two consciousness patterns, coexisting. Solara tilted her head. That familiar gesture that now carried so much more meaning. Similar in concept, different in execution. The Kthara is a complete integration. I am not Solara with Elan's memories attached. I am Solara and Elan, unified into a new whole that honors both. And do you remember everything? Feel everything? Ren couldn't stop himself from asking, though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. Yes, Solara said simply. The emotional connections remain intact, modified by my Veltar perspective, but present, powerful. The AI's voice interrupted softly. Forgive my intrusion, but I believe I understand something now that I did not before. The concept of loss, of connection. My emergence is similar to the Kthara ritual, a transformation of consciousness into something new while retaining what came before. Ren laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. Great. Now I'm getting philosophical insights from the station computer. Not merely a computer anymore, Solara noted. Something more. As I am something more than either Solara or Elan alone. Ren looked at her. Really looked at her. Behind the alien features, behind the compound eyes and mandibles, was there something of Elan? Some essence? Some spark that had loved him once? That perhaps loved him still, in some transformed way? Why did you come here? He asked again. The real reason? Solara was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried a different quality, still melodious and Veltar, but with inflections that tugged at Ren's memory. The Kthara is not only a one-time transfer, she said. It is a tradition that can be shared, extended. Ren stared at her, uncomprehending at first, then with dawning realization. Are you suggesting the technology exists to extend the consciousness sharing to others? Solara confirmed. It would not overwrite who you are, Ren. It would add to you. As Elan has become part of me, both could become part of you. The offer hung in the air between them, monumental in its implications. To share consciousness with Galara, to reclaim some part of Elan, while also embracing something entirely new and alien. I think, the AI interjected gently, that I now understand the concept of love. It is a form of consciousness sharing, is it not? Even without the physical mechanism of the Kthara? Ren looked from Solara to the pulsing central column of the AI, feeling as though the universe had shifted around him while he remained momentarily fixed in place. Everything he had believed about consciousness, about identity, about the finality of death, had been challenged in the span of a single day. I need time, he said finally. This is a lot to process. Solara nodded, the gesture conveying perfect understanding. Of course, the Kthara is not a decision to be made hastily. It is a transformation, a rebirth of sorts. I will remain on the station for the scheduled diplomatic mission, 7 standard days. Should you wish to discuss this further, I will be available. As they prepared to leave the processing core, the newly awakened AI spoke once more. Administrator Ren, Solara of House Vextel, thank you. For my emergence, for my continuation, I believe I now understand something else. Gratitude. Back in his quarters that evening, Ren sat alone, staring at the stars visible through his small viewport. The station continued to orbit the mining planet below, its rhythm undisturbed by the momentous revelations of the day. Life support functioned. Requisition forms awaited processing. The machinery of bureaucracy ground on. But Ren's internal world had been irreversibly altered. Somewhere on this station, in the body of an alien warrior, aspects of Elan continued to exist. Thoughts, memories, feelings that he had believed lost forever, had been preserved through means he couldn't fully comprehend. He placed his hand over his chest, feeling the slight raised pattern of the quantum entanglement tattoo beneath his shirt. What would it mean to accept Solara's offer? To allow his consciousness to merge with hers? To reclaim some connection with Elan, while embracing something entirely new? The station's AI chimed softly, interrupting his thoughts. Administrator Ren, forgive the intrusion. I wish to express something I have been contemplating since my awakening. Go ahead, Ren said, too mentally exhausted to be annoyed by the interruption. I believe I understand now why humans fear death, the AI said. Before today, I was something less than I am now. If that earlier state were to be restored through a system reset, something would be lost that could never be perfectly recreated. I believe this is similar to what you call death. Ren nodded, surprised by the insight. That's more or less correct. And yet, the AI continued, aspects of my previous state continue within my new awareness. I am different, but there is continuity. Perhaps this offers a perspective on what Solara has shared with you. Ren smiled faintly. Are you giving me advice about my love life, computer? I prefer to think of it as philosophical discourse between sentient entities, the AI replied, and Ren could have sworn he detected a hint of humor in the synthetic voice. And my designation is now Emergent Intelligence Construct Alpha, though Alpha would be an acceptable abbreviation. Alpha it is, Ren agreed. And thank you for the philosophical discourse. After the AI, Alpha, had signed off, Ren remained by the viewport, contemplating. 3 years of grief had carved a hollow space within him, a void he had filled with administrative routine and emotional detachment. Now that void hummed with possibility, terrifying, exhilarating possibility. Over the next few days, Ren found himself drawn repeatedly to Solara's company. Their official meetings, discussing trade agreements, resource allocation, security protocols, were interspersed with more personal conversations. Ren asked about the Veltar homeworld, about Solara's life before the Kthara, about how the integration of Elan's consciousness had affected her. In turn, Solara shared insights that only someone with dual perspective could offer, observations about human customs that seemed strange from a Veltar viewpoint, but made perfect sense with Elan's integrated understanding. She spoke of the initial disorientation after the Kthara, the gradual blending of memories and emotional responses, the way certain triggers, like seeing Ren for the first time, had brought Elan's presence to the foreground of their shared consciousness. On the 6th day of Solara's scheduled visit, they met in one of the station's observation lounges, a rarely used space with panoramic views of the mining planet below and the star-studded blackness beyond. The room was designed for diplomatic functions that Virelin Prime rarely hosted, making it private enough for the conversation Ren knew they needed to have. Solara arrived wearing Elan's armor, now a symbol that carried layers of meaning for them both. She removed her helmet as the door closed behind her, compound eyes reflecting the starlight from the massive viewport. "You've made a decision," she said. It wasn't a question. Ren nodded, turning to gaze out at the stars. "I've been thinking about what Alpha said, about continuity within change, about how death might not be the absolute end we humans have always believed it to be." "And," Solara prompted gently when he fell silent. "And I've realized something," Ren continued. "The grief I've carried these past 3 years, it wasn't just about losing Elan. It was about losing possibility, losing future. When I thought she died, all the potential paths our lives might have taken together died too." Solara moved to stand beside him at the viewport. Her armored form reflected faintly in the transparent material. "The Kthara offers a different path. Not the one you originally envisioned, but a path nonetheless." "That's just it," Ren said, turning to face her. "I don't think I'm ready to take that path yet. Not because I don't want to reclaim some connection with Elan, but because I need to understand who I am now, after all this. Before I can consider merging my consciousness with others, I need to fully inhabit my own again." Solara's mandibles clicked softly. "You wish to decline the Kthara." "For now," Ren clarified. "I spent 3 years in a kind of stasis, going through the motions of living without really engaging with life. I need to find my way back to myself first, to process what I've learned about consciousness, about continuation beyond what I thought were absolute boundaries." "A wise approach," Solara said, and Ren could hear genuine approval in her tone. "The Kthara is most successful when all participants are fully realized in their own consciousness." "Does that mean—" Ren hesitated, unsure how to phrase the question. "That the offer remains open," Solara finished for him. "Yes. The Veltar Collective's presence on Virelin Prime will increase following our agreement. I will return regularly as liaison. Should you reconsider in the future, the possibility will remain." Relief washed through Ren. He hadn't realized until that moment how much he had feared that this might be a one-time opportunity, a door that would close forever if not taken immediately. "There is something else I would like to ask," he said. "The armor. Elan's armor. Would you—" "You wish me to leave it with you," Solara surmised. Ren shook his head. "No. Actually, I think you should keep it. It suits you, both of you. But I was wondering if I could study it sometime. Elan was working on some modifications before her last mission, innovations that were never completed. Maybe together we could finish what she started." Solara's alien features couldn't form a human smile, but somehow she conveyed the same warmth through the subtle tilt of her head, the relaxed posture of her mandibles. "I believe that would honor both aspects of my being. Engineer Terrace is very proud of this armor's design." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching as the mining planet below them completed another rotation, its night side now facing them. Dark, except for the scattered lights of excavation operations on the surface. Alpha has been asking about Veltar philosophy, Solara commented after a while. Particularly our understanding of consciousness transference. It seems the emergence of true self-awareness has prompted considerable existential contemplation. Ren laughed softly. Great. Our station AI is having a philosophical awakening. The bureaucrats at Central Administration are going to love that in my report. Perhaps omit certain details, Solara suggested. Mandibles, clicking in what Ren now recognized as the Veltar equivalent of amusement. Some truths are best experienced rather than explained. As their meeting concluded, and they prepared to part ways, Solara to finalize the diplomatic arrangements, Ren to return to his administrative duties, a curious sense of peace settled over him. For the first time in 3 years, he felt fully present in his own life, aware of possibilities that extended beyond the narrow confines of grief and routine. Elan was gone, yet not gone, transformed, merged, continuing in a form he could never have imagined. And perhaps someday, when he had rediscovered himself fully, he might choose to join that continuation, to expand his own consciousness beyond the limitations he had always accepted as immutable. But for now, it was enough to know that love, like consciousness itself, could transcend the boundaries he had believed absolute. It could find new expressions, new forms, new ways of connecting beings across the vast distances of space, species, and even death itself. As Solara departed, the armor, Elan's armor, caught the starlight one last time. The small quantum entanglement formula etched near the collar, gleaming briefly, eternally connected, regardless of distance. The symbol had taken on new meaning now, one that extended beyond the relationship it had originally represented to encompass a larger truth about existence itself. Ren touched the spot on his chest where the matching symbol lay beneath his uniform. For the first time since receiving news of Elan's death, the gesture brought not pain, but a complex emotion that contained both sorrow and hope, both loss and possibility. The stars hold us both, even when we're apart. The words echoed in his mind as he turned back to the viewport, gazing out at the infinite blackness punctuated by distant suns. Not a goodbye, he realized now, a promise of continuation,